What's going on, everyone? It's another episode of the WVSports.com podcast. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by the one and only Keenan Cummings. After the Mountaineers won, the West Virginia Mountaineer football team, the 2024 version of it, is going bowling. They got their sixth win of the year with a 31-21 win over UCF in their home finale on Saturday afternoon. So, Keenan, I will let you have the floor first. Overall thoughts on just how the Mountaineers got it done?
Well, we talked, after the game against Baylor, on our preview show. This game was about pride to me. Forget all the noise about, the current status of the program, what's happening with Neil Brown, the disappointment of the season. You were playing a team here in UCF that was 4-6, had lost, what was it, 5 of their last 6 or 6 of their last 7, something to that. And they were 3-point favorites on senior day on your home field. I thought if there was any pride left in this program, they had to come out and play well in this game and beat this team. And I tip my cap to them. That's exactly what they did. Wasn't a perfect game from West Virginia, but for the most part, I think if you look at all 3 phases, it's the best game they've played probably since Oklahoma State, I would say. And, that game obviously had a much different feeling when it happened, knowing what's happened to their season. But,
Right.
West Virginia did what they needed to do. It wasn't a perfect effort by any means, but I think that you look at what the offense did. They ran the football. They controlled the ball. They had the ball 15 minutes more than UCF. Defensively, I thought that was the best effort they've had in a while. I thought that was even better than the Cincinnati game. I know Cincinnati had the touchdowns, but I thought they made Dylan Risk uncomfortable. You could see it. He had some happy feet in the pocket. I thought they tackled much better than they had the last few games. They were able to peel off some blocks and make some tackles on those perimeter screens and plays that have really been gashing them. They held them to 100-some passing, I think 172 passing yards.
They 172. Yep.
Yeah, 172. That's the lowest output against West Virginia this season. I mean, granted, it was a redshirt freshman quarterback, but as Brandon Helwig from our UCF site was saying, they were playing really well. He was playing well, heading into this game. So I think overall special teams, no one usually likes to talk about special teams unless it's costing you a game, but West Virginia dominated that phase in this game. Oliver Straw, outside of that penalty, was excellent. He averaged over 50 yards. Had good again. Michael Hayes prevented them from really getting anything in the return game, and the kickoff team tackled well when they did have returns. I thought that Preston Fox again made some really nice plays in the kickoff return game. He's this close. He just needs to make one guy miss, and he'd have a touchdown, but a couple times this season. But I thought it was a good effort. I really do. I think it's what you wanted to see out of a team that. Yeah, I understand where we're at. I understand there's a lot of disappointment about this season, but you had to win this game, and you had to have some pride doing it. And I think that they checked the boxes for me.
Yeah, I think early on they really set the tone, and I think that's the first time they've done that since that Oklahoma State game. Interesting enough, they started on defense. It was certainly a surprise. UCF won the toss and decided to take the ball, and West Virginia got the ball back within 52 seconds, I think it was. So that was really good by the defense to kind of set the tone. And truth be told, Keenan, there were 40,000 people, and that was the announced attendance there. If it had been a similar start on defense to that Baylor game from a week ago, I'm not sure how many of those people stayed. But they did stay. There was a pretty good crowd there. I would say most of the people that were there stayed for the majority, if not all, of the game. The offense, the complementary football piece that you touched on early on, that the first half really had that and encompassed that. And that kind of, I know this was kind of the title of my gamer, but that kind of propelled them to a win. They set the tone in the first half. They got us to that lead. And when this team is front running, that's when they're at their best. I know most teams when they're front running is at this best, but this team, especially with the way they control the clock, with the way they want to run the ball, when they're in front by a score or two, that's when they're really hard to beat just because of the way they control the clock. And as you said, time of possession played a big part. And then West Virginia defensively, I think they were able to pick their spots where they wanted to kind of go after UCF. I think early on, that defensive line really kind of made their presence known. I know that they had the one big pass play for the 45-yard touchdown. Harvey broke a couple runs, but I think we all expected him to break a couple runs given his talent level. But overall, the defense made plays. They got a turnover, won the turnover battle, and then scored 7 off that turnover. Keenan, that's a big mark. And then, sure enough, I think the two drives that stand out to me were the field goal drive that went 8+ minutes, and then that drive to end the game. I think so many times this year it's been West Virginia has a lead, and how are they going to possibly collapse late has been the question. And they made sure to make it a 3 possession game with the field goal when they had to, and chew up almost a half of a quarter there, and then converting a couple fourth downs late, to kind of put things out of reach and ice the game was big as well.
Yeah, and I thought that they did a really good job. They call it the middle eight. The last 4 minutes of the second quarter, the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. They took a 14-7 game and made it 28-7, and it really felt at that point the game was over. I know, UCF scored again, and they had a couple chances, but it really felt the game was over. I really think this game wasn't really as close. At least it didn't feel like it to me.
It never felt like it was in jeopardy, and I think that was the first time in a while that they've had a win where you've never felt uncomfortable if you're following or rooting for this team.
Yeah, for the fan base, it's probably a blessing. Yeah, even the wins are stressful, but I think that they did really what I wanted to see them do. You can't. We're 11 games into this. What they are is what they are. You can't really change that at this point. This is an inconsistent football team, but if you can get consistent play like this at any point, they can beat teams. So I think that when you think about, where we're at and, everything that's led up to this week and all the discussion off the field, I think it's really, when you think about games like this, it's just a big game for seniors. Like a guy like Garrett Green, he didn't have eye-popping numbers today. You look at his numbers, it's not going to be, in his top 15 games probably, but when they needed him to make plays, he made plays. That fourth down run he had, I think it was 4th and 8, and he got 12 yards. That kind of just really, that's him in a nutshell. It wasn't a pretty looking play. He made it happen with will, effort, and the kid just plays so hard, and he gives it all every time he's out there. And I think that, it's going to be lost somewhat in how disappointing the season's been, but he's the type of guy that's easy to root for. He plays so hard and really gives it all. And that's, I don't want to say it's rare in today's game, but you don't see guys like him that take a beating like he does that just keeps getting back up. He plays as long as he's healthy. And I think that, he's taken a beating this year, and it was really good to see him and Wyatt Milam and Anthony Wilson and some of these seniors that, it hasn't been the year any of them wanted, but they closed the year in the right way.
Yeah, I think those guys. Another guy, Sean Martin. He's a name that has been talked about for years and years and years, and I know he kind of gets lost in the shuffle, especially this year with the way like guys like TJ Jackson have played up front. But he's a guy that's meant a lot to this program, and
He's played his best football of late. He really has.
Yep. And I think that's what you get from a guy like Garrett, a guy like Wyatt, a guy like Sean Martin, is that these are all guys that have been here, that have stuck through it, that West Virginia fans know that they all want to win, but it's easy to root for guys that stick around, that stay with the program, that are guys that put it all on the line. And those three, I would say, have put it all on the line. Garrett especially, I'm happy for him. I know I kind of hit on this in our preview of like, this is hopefully a cool moment for him. And what did he do, Keenan, that he hasn't done all year? He took care of the ball tonight. He didn't put the ball really in harm's way. His passes were smart. He was like a lot more efficient, it felt like, than he was. 13 to 21, while that doesn't sound great, it just looked like a cleaner game from him. But yeah, and going across the line, like he does anything and everything that you want him to do if you're a fan or if you're a coach or if you're someone on this team, because he will do anything possible to try and get you that extra yard to win. And I know sometimes it leads to us going, what are you doing there, Sir Garrett? But he that's who he is, and he's a competitor at heart. And I think Neil hit it on the head describing him post game. And I think there's a true connection between the two of them that I know Neil talked about this on his radio show, that he's going to be missed when he's gone. And I think he was taken a little bit for granted, Garrett was, just because of how reliable he was of always showing up and always being there. That's not easy to get in today's game, in today's college athletic landscape of a quarterback, especially, that will take the hits that he does and keep showing up and keep being a leader. And so props to him, hat tip to him. And I think it was cool to see them kind of get that high note and that good finish after what's been a very up and down year.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of tip my cap, not a senior, but CJ Donaldson. I thought he ran so hard.
Yep.
That is the CJ Donaldson that you almost saw as a freshman. Just he got his pads low. He was trucking guys, getting yards after contact. I thought the first half he ran as well as he has at any point in his career.
So I did a couple number digging on this after the game for my 5 things. I think over the last 5 games, he had eclipsed 41 yards once. He had more than 41 yards on that first drive alone.
And a lot of it was after contact.
And his 19 carries were the second most he's gotten in a game this season.
Yeah, I thought that he barely missed 100. I think he had 96.
96, yep.
2 tuds. So good performance out of him. If West Virginia can get that guy, not just this year, next year, you have something there. I mean, him and Jaheim, that's a really, really good combo when he's running hard like that. And I think that, you tend to forget that he's only played the position 3 years. And he's missed time.
It feels like he's been here forever, man.
Yeah, he's missed time with injury in both of those years. So I think that, he's still learning. And, he's a guy that still has a lot of potential at that position. If they can get him to run like that every game, that's a pretty impressive combo you got in the backfield. But you look at this team now, 1 game left. They're bowl eligible, so we can cross that off.
So we'll have at least another month of football.
Yeah, we'll have I guess the big question now is what happens here in the future. And, I don't think either of us can answer that. But what we do know is they go to Texas Tech next weekend.
Which they might have to score 75 points if they want to come out of there with a win.
Neil mentioned it, and it's worth mentioning. West Virginia has a chance to get 6 wins in the Big 12 consecutive years for the first time. Hard to believe that that's a true stat, but it is. I mean, I think, granted, I think they've benefited by the way that the league's changed, and you don't have to play every team now. And, you would get some of those newcomers last year, and this year you're getting some of those teams still acclimating. But I think, there's a little bit of an asterisk to that, but still it's true. And I think that West Virginia does have a lot to play for. I don't know what's going to happen after the season. I know that's what everybody's talking about and kind of the focus right now from the fan base, but, there's still another game left. Who knows? Maybe they go to Lubbock and get a win. They've won games like this before. I don't know. I think that Texas Tech's going to be a much bigger challenge just for the simple fact that they can stretch you vertically. They can throw the football a lot better than UCF can.
That secondary might be in for a long one.
Yeah, I think you can score on them.
Oh, you can score on them, no doubt. Like their passing defense and West Virginia's passing defense, it's favorable for offenses, I think, is a fair assessment of both.
And I usually think McGuire is good for one head-scratching coaching move a game.
Yeah.
So, you never know what could happen. But I
but
think
also, truthfully, they've stepped up today. As much as we've been critical of them, critical of that secondary throughout the points of this year. I mean, besides the one kind of bust by Hollis there, like the one big play, they played pretty well. I mean, they got soft a couple times, but given as much attention as they had to pay to that Harvey kid because of how good he is, I thought they held up pretty well. And I mean, you talked about it earlier, like that Risk kid had played well. I mean, they were within a 1-possession game against Arizona State, who is now tied for first place in the Big 12, right?
Nobody wants to win the Big 12, apparently.
Yeah, no one does. But yeah, like it's a good day for this West Virginia defense. They played well. That secondary really did do its job. And the big thing too is that they made tackles. And I think that's another key to this that sometimes get lost is, yes, there's completions, but the ones that really hurt are the completions where then the receiver gets the yards after catch. And it seemed like there was a lot of catch, hit, not catch, run, hit. And I think that was key as well.
Yeah, and even on some of Harvey's big runs, they a couple missed tackles on those. The guy's got incredible contact balance, though. I mean, he might have as good as any I've seen this year. I mean, he's impressive. I said this last year after they played UCF. He's better this year. You think about it, you're like, they did a pretty good job on him. Then you look at his numbers, and he averaged 8 yards a carry. He had 2 touchdowns and was 130 some yards. So he got his, even with West Virginia expecting them to run the ball. So,
Yeah,
but a pretty good
16
day at
for
the office.
130 and 2 scores.
Yeah, pretty good day at the office for West Virginia's defense. You'll take that.
Yeah.
You'll take that effort, and you hope it was not just a 4-6 UCF team coming to Morgantown, playing in the cold, and all the other excuses. You hope that they can build off of it a little bit. This is 2 of 3 performances, and really 2.5. I mean, they played well in the second half against Baylor defensively. The first half was just a debacle.
They just put themselves in a hole. Yeah.
Yeah. You hope that, they can build off that and, see what happens in Lubbock. It'll be an interesting week. Obviously,
that's more of a measuring stick than I think we want to realize. I think that's really where has this in the last month under Jeff Kuhn, like where has this unit really gone? Because we've seen some good, we've seen some bad, but you're going to have to play consistent football on defense, especially in that secondary down there in Lubbock, if you want to come out with a win.
Yeah, and I will say this, though. West Virginia has played really well on the road this year.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know how.
Neil mentioned that after the game about that Big 12, like they have a chance to go undefeated, he said. And I think that's right. And on the road in Big 12 play.
Yeah.
Which, if I told you that in 2022, Keenan, a team in that was always the big issue is that they couldn't go win away from home.
Yeah, I think that we'll see. Yeah, there's still a lot to play out with in the season.
Of football away, yeah.
Yes, there's still a lot. I know it's one game, one regular season game, and we'll see where they go bowling. But I think this is a big game coming up for a lot of reasons, and I think West Virginia needs to put on a pretty good performance. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think this game goes a lot as long as this one tonight would have gone, right? Like I think that there's no decision made just from tonight. Like there's still the jury's still out, is what I'll say.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll wrap us up. We hope you made it this far. We hope you enjoyed listening. If you want to get in on the conversation, go head over to our site, westvirginia.rivals.com, or just type in WVSports.com. Go up on our message boards. There's a lot of fans chit-chatting, and I'm sure you guys would love to chit-chat with them. So I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Keenan Cummings, and this is the WestVirginiaSports.com podcast.